I call the honourable member Brendan Burns.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and I'm very pleased to take a call in the Auditor Regulation and External Reporting Bill, having just spent a couple of days in the company of auditors at a conference of ACPAC, which is the Association of Public Accounts Committees in Perth in Western Australia, and I must say it was an interesting couple of days. I'd never thought that spending a couple of days with auditors was really going to be one of my life-changing experiences. But there were a couple of very good sessions about managing KPIs and getting the best performance out of them, and a very good session from a demographer. Socialising was pretty good too, and auditors do know how to party, I'd have to say that. They're not just grey men in grey suits like some members opposite. They're not just people like that. They're actually interesting individuals with a commitment to their profession. And of course, the financial rigour that they bring is hugely important to us as a society. We only need to look back to a couple of years ago and the report of the Registrar of Companies and the criticism that was made about a number of parties and their roles in the financial company meltdowns that took place in this country and across the planet. We only need to think about Enron and the rather dubious role of a major accounting and auditing firm that led to the collapse of Enron and thousands of investors duped of their money, and we have a number of parallels here in New Zealand on a lesser scale. So the role of audit is extraordinarily important, and that's why Labor is supporting this bill as introduced by the Honourable Simon Power. We recognise the real importance that is attached to an independent oversight system of audit and making sure that the quality and expertise of the audit profession is right up there, and making sure that our audit law is aligned with overseas practice. So this is a good bill, and we obviously want to see everything that we can do to make sure that we restore some of the confidence that New Zealand has lost in their financial markets through the earlier part of this decade, or the last decade in fact, which saw a number of financial companies collapse, numbering around 20 from memory. So it's good to see this bill coming through, and obviously what this is doing is bringing into play some better regulation around registration of individual auditors needing to be licensed and firms needing to be registered. That is underpinning the quality that is needed. The auditors are there in a sense as the public's watchdog on the financial probity of a company, on the financial health of a company, and we put a great deal of store upon it. And there are some scoundrels still out there in the marketplace, and I think of one, Mr Bernard Wimp, who has announced today that he's pulling out of playing a role in basically rorting the system and basically duping people into selling shares at below their value, and he's boasting of having made $2 million and having now retired. And so I know that's what the Financial Markets Authority is going to be doing. In fact, it publicly signalled that they were going to be taking a very active stance against such practices in the market. So good to see that individual has decided to pull on his horns. But in the process, still, a number of people have been duped, and that's why we need strong financial regulation underpinned by a strong, independent audit system, and that's why this bill is important in respect of bringing through a little more strength, a little more clarity, a little more regulation, so people can have more faith in the auditing of our companies, mid-size, smaller-sized companies, bigger companies as well, because we need to know as a community, when we're making investments, that there is actually going to be something underpinning that there will be some clarity around statements that are made by auditors, and therefore people will have more capacity to have faith in their investments in financial markets, in companies, in balance sheets that actually are correct and true representations of the true state and financial health of a company, rather than, as we've seen all too often in the last few years, those balance sheets actually being propped up, those balance sheets not actually being truly representative of the health of a company, and in fact people with large stakes in that company sometimes using those companies as their personal cash resource, and that not being always signalled by the auditing process. So we do need regulation as a nation. It is important. Sometimes it's referred to as red tape and bureaucracy, but actually those are parts of the price we pay for living in an ordered society where people can have every belief in the system, that it will work for them, for their investments. And obviously a lot of people aren't wealthy, but they put into an investment, their nest eggs, their retirement funds. They need some assurance, Mr Chair, some assurance.
Call the honourable member Brendan Byrne.
They need some assurance that when they put their money into an investment, that it's actually going to be seen through, that it isn't going to be the subject of rip-off, which has happened quite a lot over the last few years. So this is a good bill. What we're going to see from it, of course, is the creation, newly created, just coming into being now, the Financial Markets Authority, with a role for the licensing of auditors, making sure that there's oversight of that. And I was pleased to see a profile piece in the Herald at the weekend of the new Chief Executive of the Financial Markets Authority. I think he was on Morning Report only this morning or yesterday morning, talking about how he's recruiting and bringing through people from other government departments, from the private sector, trying to make sure that there's a good weight of people in that authority. Part of that role that they're going to take up is to ensure that the audit profession is underscored by high professional standards, by the requirement that people are licensed, that firms are registered, and that people can have absolute assurance when they make an investment in this country, it is underpinned by the appropriate regulation and the appropriate audit system. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Chair.
The question is that the Minister's amendment set out on SOP number 239 be agreed to. As many of that opinion will please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Part 3 is amended. Stand part. All those in favour please say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Part 4, debate on clauses 83 to 97 and Schedule 2, stand part.
Mr Chair.
I call the Honourable Minister